Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. It is my pleasure to participate as speaker for this masterclass by edVentr. Thank you, edVentr, for giving me this opportunity to share a few insights. And the topic of today will be about how to develop CEO mindset. To start with, maybe one thing I would like to do is, if you're interested to connect, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I normally write quite a bit on LinkedIn and stay connected with people on LinkedIn. So you can find on the screen a small QR code on the bottom right of the screen. So you can scan that QR code and then you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. Okay. And I'll be happy to engage with you in whatever way, for messages or for posts on LinkedIn. So moving on, I would like to start this session with a question, a simple question. And that question is simply, are you CEO material? Are you CEO material? Do you think that you have what it takes to be a CEO? Think about it. In fact, my view is very often people believe that, to be a CEO, you need to have this kind of experience, so many years of experience. You need to have studied business management, finance, and also have the personality of a leader. So being charismatic, being good at communication, and so on and so forth. But actually, I have a different point of view on that. My view, as Kushila might have mentioned in the beginning, is that everyone is a CEO. In fact, you are a CEO. I am a CEO, and you are a CEO as well. Because at the end of the day, we are all CEO of our minds. Think about it. You, as a CEO, what you do is you run. If I'm take the example of Manish, it's Manish and Company Limited. That's my mind, my brain. That's what I'm running every day. I take decisions about myself every day. I communicate with myself, with others, using my mind every day. So at the end of the day, I'm doing whatever is required from a CEO's point of view with regards to myself. So I'm in charge of my own mind every day. And we are all CEOs in that perspective. Now, what does CEO mean? In fact, I would like to invite you to revisit the meaning of CEO. And by that, I mean, CEO is not a chief executive officer, but simply a chief enablement, who by in that manner is enabling himself or herself through life challenges. We are all chief enablement officers. We enable ourselves. We enable our growth. We enable ourselves to perform. We enable ourselves to achieve, and we enable ourselves to thrive. Now, to thrive through life's experiences. But as we know, life is a roller coaster, isn't it? It's made up of ups and downs. And if you look at the screen here, you will see these are the signs of when you're measuring heartbeat pulse of people. The heartbeats are measured like this, with ups and downs. If the line were flat, what would it mean? It would mean that we're dead. So life, of course, might be a roller coaster with its ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it's those ups, those peaks, as well as those drops, which makes life meaningful, which makes the moment and the experience enjoyable. Now, allow me to share my own story about this, how I've learned about the CEO mindset through my own life experience. So this is a picture of me taken in 1998. Yes, at that time, I still had hair. Funny enough, my kids today think of, when they see this picture, they can't realize that I actually had hair, So I am the guy in the middle with blue jacket and the red polo. And this is a picture of me with my friends in Singapore. We were studying at the Nanyang Technological University, NTU in Singapore. And if you look at it, everyone is smiling in this picture, but it was not a moment of joy for me, because that day I was leaving Singapore, come back to Mauritius after having spent only 3 months at university. And I had to leave university, come back to Mauritius because of a personal tragedy. You see, what happened is, on a few days before that, it was the 27th of September, actually. It was a Sunday. And I had gone to play football at the university with my elder brother, Vikram, who was studying there. He was in 3rd year. And after the football match, he collapsed on the field, and he passed away just a few moments later from, I would say, a malaise, as we say in French. I never knew exactly what happened. By the time the ambulance came, it was already too late, and they had to start giving him electric shocks. So that day, my life changed forever, because I went numb after losing my elder brother at the age of 18. And that's a picture of him. Actually, that's one of the last pictures I have of my elder brother when he was still alive. He was my mentor. He was my guide. He was my role model. And we were just 2 years, there was just a 2-year difference. So we had grown up together, and I always looked up to him for direction and for advice. And when my brother passed away on campus in Singapore, for 3 days, I was in a state of shock. I did not have a single tear came out, because I was in such a state of shock that I didn't understand what was happening to me. I had to fly back to Mauritius with my brother's body. And it's only when I landed 3 days later with his body that, when I saw my parents, that the reality hit me. And that's where the first time in 3 days that I actually shed a tear. From there on, I had to rebuild myself, because I had to leave university. I had to forego my scholarship, which I had earned at the university there, and to start afresh, because my parents didn't want me to go back to Singapore. They wanted me to stay in Mauritius with them after having lost one of their children. So I had to rebuild myself from there. And one of the elements that I learned from that experience is, our moments of breakdown are also our moments of breakthrough. I went through a depression at the age of 18. I sat at home for a couple of months before starting to figure out, what do I do next with my life? I started to work then as a trainee at Mauritius Telecom. I had done engineering, actually, as studies, and I ended up being put in the human resources department of Mauritius Telecom. And that's where I started to rebuild myself. And actually, that's how, by accident, by tragedy of life, that I ended up in the field of human resources. Now, what I learned from this is was inspired by one quote that I came across early on from Mahatma Gandhi. I was a student of Mahatma Gandhi Institute in Mauritius, and one of the key messages by Mahatma Gandhi has always been, be the change you want to see in the world, isn't it? Or in other words, in the power to change yourself lies the power to change the world around you. So everything, all change starts with yourself. And from there, what I started to do was I embarked on a quest to learn and invest in myself. I embarked on a quest to find my own way, my purpose, to connect with my emotions. So I had to start to feel again after having been numb and in depression for a couple of months. And the best way to learn and to invest in myself was to focus on self-development, focus on keep learning and improving. So, and that's where, with a lot of hard work from those days, 10 years later, I was promoted to Chief HR executive at Rogers at the age of 28. It was a journey of hard work, I can say, because at the same time as I was working, I was also studying full time. So by the time I graduated, I had already at least 5 years of experience under the belt, having worked in corporate environments. And as I joined Rogers in 2006, actually, as human resources manager. And within 2 years, I had the opportunity to be promoted as group head of HR. That spurred me on to keep investing in myself, because you can realize when you're promoted at the age of 28, you're still young, and everyone around you, including people in your own team, are more experienced and are older than you. So what spurred me on to be able to succeed in my job was, again, to keep learning and to keep investing in myself. Now, 10 years later, this is a speech I delivered. That's where the first time I shared philosophy of the CEO mindset was in 2018. And that's 3 years early, 3 years before, actually. So, and how I came across the CEO mindset was through modeling. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not modeling during the catwalk, but actually it's modeling that is role modeling. Modeling means in science, understanding how things are done. For example, if you take sportsmen, they model excellence, they model how they are performing, and then they break it down into steps and then to learn a new model from it. So I had the opportunity since the last 10 years of working with quite a few CEOs and managing directors and general managers to understand what makes a successful CEO, successful leader. And what I discovered was the CEO mindset is very simple. First, it's about understanding that you are all CEOs, that you are a chief enablement officer. Or as you can put it, you can also call it a chief experiences officer. And the CEO mindset is simply a formula. The formula is simply clarity, energy, and outcomes. I repeat, clarity, energy, and outcomes. And that's it. That's all you need to do. If there's one thing I would like you to remember from today's session is this: clarity, energy, and outcomes. That's what makes a CEO. Now, let me unpack this for you. Clarity. What is clarity, actually? Clarity is the ability to see, to feel, and to read the world around us accurately. It's our ability to see the world with lucidity. And it's about, first and foremost, to have a clear mind. A mind which is clear means a mind which is not perfect, not conflicted, but which can read the situation with lucidity, which can envision the future with distinction, in a very clear way. Now, let me unpack that further. Why this is important is that a mind without clarity is like a dark, cloudy sky. Imagine, take the metaphor of the sky. When the sky is cloudy like this, you don't see much ahead of you, isn't it? You don't see the sun, you don't see the moon, you don't see the stars. At the same time, even if, for example, you're driving and there's fog in front of you, your field of vision is limited, isn't it? So clarity is the first step, main enabler for you to envision a better future. Now, what does it mean in terms of clarity? There's a clarity formula, which is simply develop clarity of intention with yourself and share a clear message around you. So how do you do that? Let me explain. Develop clarity of intention is simply to work with the power of intention. The power of intention, if you're interested to know more, comes from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who wrote in his book, The Power of Intention. He shared the whole philosophy of intention. And intention is more than energy. It's more than just an objective, more than a goal, more than an aim. It's intention carries energy. It's a higher purpose. It's the why, the big why, which drives you. So be clear about your intention about whatever you do. So let me share my intention for today's session. My intention as the speaker today is to be clear and focused so as to deliver an insightful webinar. See, And here there is a formula for it. The formula is simply my intention is to be, so I have to do. Let me give you another example. Say, for example, you have an important presentation to do. You can set your intention first. You develop a clarity of intention about your presentation before doing it. And if you use the same formula, for example, for a presentation, my intention is to be confident and composed so as to deliver an impactful presentation. You see, so there is a formula for it: being and doing. The being is what enables you to do it. Clear? Good. Once you're clear on your intention, then it's also about ensuring clarity around you, sharing a clear message, which is clearly articulated. Now, that's about clarity. And why clarity is important when you build on intention is because your intention creates your reality, as Dr. Wayne Dyer said. Intention is that high energy which what you visualize, you're able to materialize. Why is this important? Again, because everything that exists in the universe, in our world, has been created twice. Let me repeat that. Everything that exists in our world, in your world, in my world, has been created twice. How is it twice? First, in your mind, and secondly, then you visualize, you materialize. So first, you visualize it in your mind, you create it in your mind, and then secondly, you materialize it around you. And that's how intention works, which enables clarity. Moving on from clarity, then it's about energy. Energy, it's not the energy that we know that we produce, for example, from fossil fuels, from solar energy. No, it's about human energy. Energy is our capacity for doing work. And success lies in our ability to generate and focus positive energy. You see, your vibes attracts your tribe, and your energy is what creates that vibe. So let me explain that further. And I'd like to quote Albert Einstein here. Everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot but help get that reality. In other words, everything is energy around us. Everything is energy in the sense that we are constantly vibrating as human beings. And by vibrating, I mean, I have a background, for example, I have a background in science. And if you studied science, you've studied physics, you might know that energy has a dual nature. The dual nature of energy is matter and waves. So the matter is the physical element, that is solid, liquid, gas, and so on. And the vibration, the waves are the vibration at which that matter vibrates, that the frequency of it. So we all, as human beings, we have vibrations, and these vibrations are our energy. And our energy essentially is the emotions we have. Because what's an emotion, you will ask? Emotion is a feeling, isn't it? But more than that, an emotion is simply an energy in motion. An emotion is an energy in motion. And energy, which you can transform, which you can share, which you can diffuse. So for me, what's essential about energy, which is the second most important element of having a CEO's mindset over and above clarity, is how do you generate energy? Because a friendly reminder, energy is our most important resource. It's not time, it's not money, it is energy. If you don't have the energy, you might be very good at time management, but if you're low on energy, you're not well, then you will not be able to be productive or to be successful in what you're doing, isn't it? So if you take in today's world, which is impacted severely by COVID-19, being in a healthy position, being healthy and having vitality and energy is essential, isn't it? So remember, energy is your most important resource, and whatever you have to do is always be sure how you're going to generate positive energy in you. Now, so what's the energy formula? Generate positive energy and focus your energy. That's it. That's all you have to do when it comes to energy. So how do you do it? And there's no rocket science here. Generating energy, positive energy actually, is about eating right, sleeping right, sleeping well, and exercising. So how do you eat? Eat meaning what? How do you nourish your body? Here, food, if we look at it, food is the fuel which drives us. It is what energizes us. And what you put inside of your body is essential. Take for example, all of us drives cars, most of us, okay? You have a car. Would you put anything in the engine when you're going to put the fuel? Or is it a specific type of fuel that you put in your car? So the same thing applies for human beings. For our body, the fuel that we put, what we inject in our body is food that we consume. So always be careful about the food that you're having, which is nutritious, that you are nourishing your body instead of just feeding it. So unfortunately, though, in today's world, many people are overfed but undernourished. I repeat, we are overfed but undernourished. What I mean by this is you might be eating everything and anything, but is your body being nourished with that food? That's a question I'd like to leave you with. The next one is sleep, getting quality sleep, which allows us to regenerate, recharge our batteries and recover. Again, 7 to 8 hours sleep are essential to be able to recharge. Finally, exercise is really the movement. How do you move? How do you recharge your body again with exercise, which allows you to feel fit and to generate positive energy? A polite reminder on that is looking after yourself is not selfish. In fact, self-care is essential for any leader. To be a CEO, you need to be fit. Actually, I'll give an analogy here is if you look at athletes, if you take the example of a world-class athlete, let me take, for example, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, who just signed for Manchester United. By the way, I'm a Manchester United fan. Some people might not like me for that now. Cristiano Ronaldo is known to be one of the best athletes in the world in his field. He's still an achiever at the age of 36, and he's probably broken most of the records that exist when it comes to being a footballer. But what he's very particular about is his health, the way he nourishes his body with the right foods, the way he eats and drinks. He does not drink alcohol, he doesn't drink fizzy drinks or soft drinks, and he exercises constantly. So if you look at it, that's what an athlete does. But in the world of work, we are also athletes. That's why we call it corporate athletes. But compared to athletes, what we do is the moment we get up, we start to work. So we perform, but we do not recharge. Compared to an athlete, they train, they recharge, and they perform. Performance is limited, but it's high performance. They spend a lot of time on self-care as well as training. The same should apply in the corporate world. You should spend enough time on your health in terms of self-care in order to perform. Now, after generating the energy is really about how you focus your energy. And focusing energy is really about prioritizing, being able to say no, saying yes to what matters and saying no to what is not essential, and taking breaks. Now, how many of you find it hard to say no? I'm guilty of that. I've been guilty of that for many years. Saying no has been, I would say, the story of my life for quite a few years now, until in a mentoring conversation that changed me. And my mentor challenged me with a simple question when he asked me, why do you find it hard to say no, Manish? My mentor's name was Andrew. And I said, well, maybe because I don't want to hurt people. I said, okay, but what's important about that? And I replied, well, maybe I don't want to hurt people. And he said, okay, I hear you, but what's important about that, Manish? Not hurting people. And I replied, thinking deep, I said, okay, I feel it's really, I don't want to be rejected by people by saying no. And that's where the penny dropped. That is, I had been not being able to say no because I had a fear of rejection. And then he helped me overcome that fear of rejection and saying no with a simple reframe. And the reframe is simply, if you find it hard to say no, then you're wrong. Because actually you're very good at saying no. You're a master of no if you can't say no to people. Why? Because by not saying no to people, you're saying no to yourself most of the time. So actually you're very good at saying no. But the fact is you're very good at saying no to yourself. No to your goals, no to your priorities, and no to what's important to you. So think of this. If you find it hard to say no, then you're probably very good at saying no to yourself. So choose to say yes to yourself first. Yes to your priorities, to your goals, to your passion, and that will allow you to start saying no to others. So focusing your energy is really about choosing what you want to do, as well as taking breaks from it. And finally, we come to, oh, by the way, that's another one. When it comes to energy, in today's world, when you have to generate positive energy and then you have to focus that energy, many of you will tell me that, well, I don't have a work-life balance anymore. How many of you, if you raise of hands, can say you don't have a work-life balance anymore? Now with COVID, working from home, some are doing homeschooling also, some constantly working from home. So everything is connected in, isn't it? Now you get messages constantly. You're connected on your smartphone, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on email, on LinkedIn. So the boundary between your work and your personal life has been blurred. So that's why I say in today's world, work-life balance doesn't exist. Work-life balance doesn't exist anymore. What exists instead is work-life integration. What I mean is being able to integrate your personal life in your work life. For example, when you're at work, you're able to send your messages to your friends, to your family. You're able to check your social media. And at the same time, when you're at home, you also sometimes you have to integrate certain elements of work. For example, responding to emails, responding to calls, or doing Zoom calls from home. So it's really about changing that philosophy that it's no longer a balance, actually it's always a disbalance, but more to integrate it as it's something that you have to find your own way of integration. So, which brings me to the last item, the last element of the formula, CEO's mindset, clarity, energy, and outcomes. Now, what are outcomes? The outcomes are the result or the effect of an action. And here, what I mean by outcome is really to keep seeking better outcomes. And by that, seeking better outcomes, it's about being clear on what you want versus what you don't want. Being outcome focused is an essential element of CEO's mindset. So it starts with being constantly seeking better outcomes, constantly sharpening the saw, or constantly finding better ways of doing things. And secondly, outcomes is about constantly investing in yourself. I'm going to talk about these two a bit more. Now, what does it mean to seek better outcomes and to develop an outcomes mindset? Here, what I would say is an outcomes mindset is simply to think like an astronaut, for example. That's one metaphor. So what does that mean, to think like an astronaut? Have you ever realized that pilots and astronauts are taught in a specific way? That is, they're trained to not see a problem, but to diffuse the problem. So you might have heard, Houston, we have a situation. So it's not Houston, we have a problem, we have a situation. The same way pilots, when they're flying, if there is an emergency, there's a situation, there's a crisis, there's a problem, they'll say, ladies and gentlemen, it's your captain speaking, we have a situation here, and so on and so forth. So the key here is not to see the problem as a problem, but to see it as a situation. Why this is important? Because the words that we use act like spells. That's why we call it spelling, right? When you use a word.
Sorry, Manish, you are muted.
So I was muted for quite long now.
No, just for a couple of seconds.
Okay, it's fine. So what I was saying is when you reframe the word, use it's not a problem, but it's a situation. You're removing the pressure from your shoulders. You are releasing less cortisol, which is stress hormone in your body, and you're able to be more resourceful and response able to be able to tackle any situation. And this allows you to focus on the outcome at hand. Now, to keep seeking better outcomes is simply to keep learning. To keep learning by learning from the situation. And on this, I'd like to quote Nelson Mandela, who once in an interview was asked by a journalist, Mr. Mandela, what makes you such a good leader? And his answer was simply, you know, I never lose. I either win or I learn. So my philosophy on this, building on that, on what Mr. Mandela said, is in life, many times you'll win and many times you lose, but never lose the lesson. So keep seeking better outcomes. It's constantly finding ways to do things better and to keep learning from it. So remember I had shared about at one of the earlier slides about being clear on what you want versus what you don't want. Let me expand on that a bit. When you're clear about what you want, you're able to materialize it. You visualize what you materialize, right? I'll give you an example where it's important to state your outcome in a positive way. That's why we call it positively stated outcome. How many of you have tried to lose weight? How many of you have tried to lose weight or are still trying? A lot of us, isn't it? It's one of the facets where why do we want to lose weight? It's because in our mind, the message that we have is I don't want to be fat. So the way we word it in itself is an issue. So there are two elements to that. First, when you're saying I want to lose weight, there's a meaning that we have with the word lose. Let me expand on that. What happens when you lose your mobile phone, or when you lose your car keys, or when you lose your favorite pen? What happens? Your first reaction is you want to get it back, isn't it? Because it's mine. So why would it be different when you use the word lose for weight? See, the word we use, you create a certain mental association with it. So when you say, I want to lose weight, your mind interprets it as, oh, that's fine. The weight is mine, so I have to get it back. So that's one way. You have to choose to use a different word. Is I don't want, so it's not to lose weight, it's to get fit, to be healthy. So that's one way you can reframe it. The other thing is also important about saying, being clear on what you want instead. So when you are trying to lose weight, many people will say, I don't want to be fat, or other words, or other ways that we respond in what we don't want. Some people will tell you, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want this. I don't want that. Have you come across these people? It includes many of us, actually. We are very often very clear on what we don't want first. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to fail. We don't want to be fat. We don't want this. We don't want that. We don't want that. But what happens? That's what we end up getting. Because what we focus on expands. We visualize, we materialize. So it's really reframing that into exactly what you do want. So for example, if you don't want to be fat, what do you want to be instead? You want to be fit, you want to be slim, you want to be healthy. If you don't want to be rejected, what you want is you want to be accepted, you want to be loved, you want to be recognized. You don't want to fail, you want to learn, you want to succeed, you want to achieve. So it's really about being clear on what you want instead. And that's how you keep creating better outcomes. So finally, the final tip for me from my side on outcomes is how to keep investing in yourself. And that's one of the meta skills of the 21st century. that is self-learning. The ability to keep learning, keep an open mind, and keep investing in your own development. Why I call it a meta skill is it's a skill which is essential, which will allow you to do many things. So 3 things that I would advise, from an experience perspective, what has worked for me is bite-sized learning. So regularly, on a regular way, we have access to information now readily in today's world. So watch videos, be it TED Talks, be it videos on YouTube, subscribe to the best podcasts that you want, read books or attend webinars, or do short courses. It's really about bite-sized learning and doing it regularly in a clear and explicit way, that is with a clear intention. Second is set yourself an objective every year, a goal every year, to learn and to upskill yourself with a new skill every year. So I'll give my example, my story. This year, I learned new technique, something new, and that was numerology. I spent some time learning numerology. And I must say, I found it very interesting because it's based on science and mathematics. So I really liked it. And it's not something related completely to my field of work. So it doesn't need to be learning a new skill, does not need to be something related to what you do. It can be something completely different. Like, for example, surfing, if you want, or baking a cake, some others. So it's really about being clear on setting yourself an objective to learn a new skill every year. And this will keep you on your toes and will help you develop a concept called learning agility. And finally, have a mentor or be a mentor yourself. This probably is one of the most, the best advice I can give. And it is probably one of the factors which can accelerate your learning and your career in the most amazing way, is to have a mentor. I've had several mentors across the years who have helped me in my journey. So when I was promoted in 2008 as head of HR for Wonders, one of the first things I did was to get a mentor who helped me, who guided me. And that really, really helped because I learned from the experience of very wise people. In fact, we do not succeed on our own. We succeed very often because we're carried on the shoulders of giants. So always find a way to have a mentor. And when you have time, also be a mentor, because then you're not only giving away, imparting knowledge and experience, but also you learn from it as well. So in a nutshell, the CEO's mindset is really about clarity, energy, and outcomes. And my message to you is that life is a journey to become a better version of yourself. With the mindset of a CEO, everyone is a CEO. Clarity of mind, focused energy, and better outcomes. Thank you, and over to you.